Hey guys, this is HotNoob here, and I'm going to be continuing on with my old PHP tutorials here. So this will be PHP tutorial number 7, and from the looks of it, we haven't gone over functions yet. So I'm going to be going over functions and possibly references and stuff like that. So as you can probably hear, I'm on an internal mic right now, so you can probably hear the tapping right there. And yeah, so I hope you guys don't mind the sound difference, the sound quality difference. It's probably going to be a bit lower. And yeah, so I'm on a completely different computer. I may run into some spots where I'm struggling a bit because Camtasia does screw up a little few things on my computer and stuff while it's running and recording. So anyways, I'm just going to go over to my tutorial files. You can see I just moved it there, blah blah blah, wrote it. Moving on, I just put in the PHP tags, and we're going to be doing functions. So the way you declare a function is very, very, very simple. With the word function, it's just like JavaScript, and there are no return types or anything like that. You don't even have to return anything. It's just function, put in your name, your parameter brackets, so 2 brackets for that, and then curly brackets below it, and then the optional end line or semicolon there. And then if I just go syntax check, pretty sure, yeah, just have to verify about this. Most languages allow you to do something like that, and basically what that does is it allows you to compress it and then have all of your function junk in one line. That just is not very useful for someone who's starting out, but later on you may come into situations where you're just really lazy and you want it all in one line, and you know, stuff that you shouldn't be doing. So yeah, the way naming works with functions, it's pretty simple. It has to start with a letter. You cannot put a number before it or a symbol. I don't know if that would work. It depends on the symbol, I guess. No, I'm pretty sure it's a symbol. You can't put symbols in, but you can put the underscore. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so you can't put in the hyphen, but you can put underscore, and you guys can figure it out really. But underscore is going to be the main one that you're going to be using if you're putting a non-character in front of it. Yeah, so what are functions? Functions are basically just codes of block that you call. What it will do for you in the long run is it'll make it a lot easier to control your code, your flow, and all that stuff. It'll make your code look prettier. Functions overall are not more efficient, but this is PHP, so in the case of PHP, functions are more efficient. So what I mean by that is if you're to program in a language like C++, creating a ton of functions and function calls is not going to be more efficient. But in terms of PHP, because it is an interpreter language, it has to parse all of that extra code that you type in, so using lots of functions may end up being beneficial. Anyways, moving on, let's just start off by creating a function here. Let's call it do stuff. And then we're just going to put in some code here. My function is calling, or is doing stuff. There we are. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Now to call it, it's extremely difficult. You just type in the function name, ta-da, brackets, and if you were to have parameters, you put in the variables here, and stuff like that. So I'm just going to go ahead here and load it up. My function is doing stuff. Simple as that. Come on, there we are. So let's say we wanted to actually make this function useful, because right now it is just a complete waste. It took a lot of time to make that function, and it takes a lot more processing power than just running this one line of code. So, yeah. Let's make a simple math function. Let's call this function add. and we want to make it add 2 variables, something like that. I know it's not very practical, but this is very good for learning purposes, so let's call this number, or num1 and num2. That is it for your parameters. Simple as that. So now this is sort of like declaring the variable in the parameters, so this would sort of be like the equivalent of putting num1 and num2 in front like this, except the user has the option of giving them values, and you have the option of giving them values when you call it. And as you can see in my editor, oh, look at that, it posted up right there, nice and easy for you. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to add, so we need to make the function return something, and this is done with a return word. Finally, we make it do the little math parts. Ta-da! That's it. It just returns the value here. Now, this may seem a little bit confusing, so I'm just going to make this a little less efficient and more sort of readable or friendly to the noobs there. And I'm going to call this sum equals $sign num1 plus variable num2, and we're going to make it return sum. It's less efficient than just returning it, but this way you can actually see what the hell is happening. And I'm just going to go in here and echo add 1 plus 1, and you just saw there that I was correcting it. The function names are case sensitive, so if I were to call add like this, I would get an error, put a capital in it. Okay, whoops. Oh, I'm bad there. I put in plus instead of comma. So this is parameter 1. Come back here. This is parameter 1. This goes into variable number 1. And this goes into variable number 2. And I'll try and clear that up a little bit. And it outputs 2. So I'm going to change this up a little bit so you guys can sort of see. You guys might get a bit confused by this. So I'll just hope you won't get confused too much. Number 1, I'm declaring a variable which is outside of the scope of this function. So this is the global scope, and this is the local scope for this specific function. Global, local. Just something you guys need to keep be aware of. So number 1 equals 1. Number 2 equals 2, and I'll just change this to the $sign num1, $sign num2, so you guys can see a better view of it and how it works. And I'll just load it up, and it outputs 3. Now this might be a bit confusing, the difference between the scopes. I know to me it's like plain and simple, no duh. Like, how do you screw this up? Screw this sort of thing up, but it can be a little bit confusing. So you have local variables and you have global variables. Each little function here has its own set of local variables. The same thing happens with classes and stuff like that, but curly brackets, like if statements and stuff, this is all in the global scope. These don't affect the scopes, which is sort of like a set. I don't know how to explain it other than with the word scope. Let's make a nice little function here to sort of explain it. So I'm just going to make a function here, and I'm going to say, just call it assign values. I'm just going to say value 1. And in this, we're going to make it assign a value to, I don't know, blah. Yeah, just call it something. Equals our assign value 1. So if we were to run this function, give this a value of something as a string, when it would run, it would assign, well, first it would call this function, assign values after declaring it, of course. We would call that function, send the string through the parameters, and it would be sent in the function, which would receive it as the variable $value1, which it then assigns to this variable, but it's not declared anywhere. So what's actually happening is it is declaring a variable called something. So let's just echo, just so guys can actually see some output, and we have something showing up. Now let's make a global variable. So these are local variables. This is a local variable called something, right? If we were to go afterwards and say echo $something, we get a nice little error. I guess that sort of explains it. Now, what if we already have a global variable called something? Let's just put nothing in here. And we were to, whoops, yeah, there we are. And we were to assign the value something through it, as through the function assign values. And then finally, let's make it, after assigning the values, echo something. So refresh. You know what? I don't have global set in my settings, so that's another thing that you need to be aware of. For security reasons, you don't want them enabled, but as you can see, these are both into separate scopes. So if you change your settings, these will become the same. That's something you got to keep on the back of mind. But let's say you want to do this all without compromising the security, and you want to keep it on with the default settings with the separate scopes. So what we do is we go $globals. I'm just gonna verify this. I can never remember it, so I'm just gonna Google and just search for globals. Yep. What? Okay, sorry about that. Some people were coming. Anyways, we have the, well, you just go to PHP and you can sort of see they have a nice little good explanation of it. This is sort of how you define a global variable in a function, right? So I'll get to that later. $globals, and then you put in, treating it as it were an array, and you put in the string as the key, $globals, all capitals, no funny underscores like you have to do with the get and post parameters, and it is with an S at the end. No, it's a bit tricky to remember because you just like global something, you know. Anyways, refresh it, and then all of a sudden it becomes something. Ta-da! Dun dun dun. Now, like you saw in that little manual here, we have the globals. I'm just gonna go here, back here, and I'm gonna show you guys a nice little example. This is for if you want to declare a global variable within a local scope or within a function or something. So I'm gonna go ahead here and change this to initialize. And so let's just get rid of all this junk here, and we'll leave that here. We'll use the same variable. So we have our nice initialize function, and we are going to give something a value. Let's give this something has a value. Ta-da! Now what's going to happen if we just do it like this? Undefined variable. Why is that? Because it's in the local scope. So to change it, global. Ta-da! Okay, okay, well, apparently you can't do it that way, which is so sad. So you get that syntax error, and the reason being is because you have to do it in a separate line. I know, all sad face and everything, you know, sad face. Okay, so you declare the global variable something, and blah blah blah. It's a bit confusing, I guess, the way I explained it, so I'll explain it quickly before my time runs out. What it does is it takes the global variable and puts it into the local variable. So I'll just give this quickly a value, And then if I were to change this rather than clearing, I'd say echo $something. Close that before I run out of time. Okay, and save, refresh. Anyways, this is HotNoob here. You guys can come check out my blog at hotnoob.com, and I'll see you guys later.